from across the Federation, spanning the region and covering the globe. This is the KyssFM SKN News Now Evening Edition, your one true source for news. And now your presenter.
I'm Ebony Brown, and today is Thursday, the 9th of February, 2017. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines tonight, nationally, the government has hosted a national crime symposium after months of appeals by the opposition to do so. Regionally, Dominica's Prime Minister said he will not be forced into demitting office following massive riots in Roseau. And internationally, Le Pen's liberalist rhetoric is sparking concerns over the possibility of France's exit from the European Union. We've got the details of these stories and more straight ahead in this evening's edition of SKN News Now. The first of two national crime reduction symposiums was held today at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort under the theme Uprooting Crime and Violence. Among those invited were local law enforcement agencies, private and public sector stakeholders, the parliamentary opposition, and private citizens who've experienced a loss due to criminal activity. Introductory remarks were given by Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Osman Petty, who, in offering an explanation of the objective of the symposium, declared that enough attention has not been paid to the root causes of crime in society.
Over the last years, crime has increased in the Federation, and much of the discussion has centered around the work of the police, as it should, and much of the discussion has centered around measures to curb the violent action of gangs and individuals. But in my view, and in the view of some others, not enough attention has been placed on the root causes of crime, what is driving criminal activity in the Federation and elsewhere, and we can learn from what happens elsewhere. Some of the causes perhaps are obvious: economic factors, employment, and so on. But some may not necessarily be so obvious. And today, we want to look, in general, at the root causes of crime and violence.
Morning was Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, who explored what he considered to be among the top causes of crime.
Today, we have representatives from a wide range of stakeholder groups, as well as individuals, and we have all come to examine the root causes of crime and to come up with strategies that potentially can reduce crime if they are systematically implemented. The root causes of crime are well documented and researched around the region and internationally. From that research, we can garner that crime is primarily the outcome of multiple adverse social, economic, cultural, and family conditions. To prevent crime, it is important to have an understanding of its roots. These, of course, are complex as they are interrelated, but we can summarize some of these in the following ways. Broadly, economic factors, social environment, including, of course, the family structures. In addition to the lack of financial resources, poverty manifests itself in a lack of educational opportunities, a lack of meaningful employment options, poor housing, lack of hope, and the prejudice against persons living in poverty. Our social structure mirrors to citizens and communities what we value and how we set priorities. Social root causes of crime include inequality, lack of support to families and neighborhoods, real or perceived inaccessibility to services, the lack of leadership in communities, low value placed on children and individual well-being, and the overexposure to television as a means of recreation.
The keynote speaker was Grenadian crime reduction specialist Dr. Neil Chaitin. Dr. Chaitin proposed that a severe lack of respect is among the major contributors to the prevalence of crime.
Disrespect, as I see it, is the major root feeding most criminal behavior. Most of them. Some of them are not accelerated by disrespect, but most of them. To discuss disrespect, we have to first understand what respect is. And ladies and gentlemen, I might be challenging the status quo today, but I'm prepared to do that. So here is a definition, and here's my definition, by the way. Respect, a basic level of unqualified filial appreciation, regard and consideration people extend to each other, not because of what they own, what they earn, or what they have done, but merely because of who they are, and that's humans. Ladies and gentlemen, everywhere I go, I hear people say, you got to earn my respect. I don't believe it. I don't live my life by it. It's an unqualified filial appreciation. You don't have to qualify for me to respect you, sir. I don't even have to know you. The mere fact that you're human, as long as I see you, sir, the minute I recognize you as a human being, you deserve my respect.
In other news, former Deputy Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Erlasse Martin, believes there is no valid reason why the second cruise pier has not yet been constructed. According to Dr. Martin, prior to the Labour administration's departure from office, finances for the second cruise pier at Port Zante had been budgeted for.
Imagine when Labour was in office up to 2015, we had budgeted for a pier to cost $32 million to construct a pier. After 2 years, that same pier is costing $41 million. $9 million more. But why is the cement gone up? Or is it they have a new consultant? I'm told there were two companies that were actually vying to build this pier. A Canadian company and a Brazilian company. Both of them were vying to build this pier. One company wanted a sovereign guarantee. Another company said they will build it without any sovereign guarantee. And what the government did, they gave the construction of that pier to the company that said they would need a sovereign guarantee to build that pier for an additional $9 million. Imagine that. A pier that cost $32 million in 2015. In 2017, that pier is costing $41 million, $9 million more.
The former parliamentarian also had several questions about the stalled project, one of which is the $9 million increase in the cost of the pier from the original estimate of $32 million.
Who is going to pay that additional $9 million? Is the people going to pay that additional $9 million for the construction of that pier? Which minister of government is linked to the company that is going to build that pier? That is a fundamental question people are asking out there. Which minister of government is linked to that company that is going to build that pier? The other question they're asking, is that company linked to a politician in Barbados that is going to build that pier? The other question that people will want to ask, is it that company, is this linked to a company that built the Bastia High School? Those are fundamental questions people are going through their minds. And that is why this pier took almost 2 years. Just last December, they issued the tender, and they went through the tender, and the Canadian company was offered with the bid to build that pier. But after 2 years, the wrangling between former minister and present minister about which company can be used, because everybody wanted to get a bit of the spoils. Everybody wanted to. So that is why the company, the construction of that pier moved from $32 million to $41 million. The construction of the second pier, as a matter of fact, is looking fishy. It's looking fishy. And this thing stinks from the head right down to the tail. Stink with corruption from the head right down to the tail.
Meanwhile, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party caretaker representative for constituency number 8, Dr. Terence True, believes it's unlikely that the Team Unity administration will enact the Integrity in Public Life Act. On Wednesday, Dr. True asserted that top government officials are very likely to be weighed in the balance and found wanting should Integrity in Public Life legislation be enacted.
He understands that if he were to do anything with the Integrity in Public Life Act or bill, the first person who will be found wanting would be Timothy Harris himself. And so from the beginning, he never had any real intention of activating the Integrity in Public Life. Yet, he go around in these town halls talking about he has the O and talking about bingo, these bingo bacchanal I will call them, because these can't be serious government town hall meetings to inform the public. These are public meetings paid for by taxpayers. And he goes on in his bingo bacchanals and he says accountability and good governance. And I ask him one question: why haven't you activated the Integrity in Public Life Act? We'll never do it. Or he would try something, I suspect, close to the end of his term to try to fool people again.
The Integrity in Public Life Act, though debated and passed into law under the Labour Party administration, was not enacted. One of the principal promises made by Team Unity while still in opposition was the immediate enactment of the Integrity in Public Life Act upon their election. To date, this has not materialized. Researchers at Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine on St. Kitts have been awarded a grant by the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, to study mosquito-transmitted arboviruses such as chikungunya, dengue, and Zika, which have emerged as global public health threats. The study will also advance an understanding of how they may be transmitted between animals and humans. According to a statement from Ross University, scientists are still unsure of how these viruses spread from their natural hosts, non-human primates in Africa and Asia, to human beings, resulting in epidemics around the world. The research will conduct investigations into whether African green monkeys are infected with arboviruses in the 5 ecosystems present on the island of St. Kitts, identify the mosquitoes that may be involved in the transmission of the viruses among the monkey population, and probe how the viruses spread amongst people on the island. The grant was awarded by the NIH's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. It's the first NIH grant awarded to a research team at Ross. Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Legal Affairs and Communications, Honorable Vincent Byron, has for the first time elaborated on the status of the elections boundaries. According to Mr. Byron, under the previous Labour administration, the Boundaries Commission report was rushed to the Parliament and passed questionably.
It was just on the 16th of January, 2 years ago, that when the Constituency Boundaries Commission would have prepared a report on changing boundaries to elect representatives, that this report was rushed to the Parliament and it was supposedly passed in a very abominable way. We all saw it play out where Team Unity had to rush to the Parliament and put an injunction on that boundaries report to change the existing boundaries to new boundaries. That injunction still is in place today. So that today, what we have are boundaries still representing the old boundaries.
Mr. Byron went on and admitted that the injunction filed by Team Unity while in opposition is a limited one. He also gave his opinion on what will likely happen when there is a final court ruling on the validity of the disputed boundaries commission report, or if Team Unity decides to withdraw the injunction.
Until a case brought by Team Unity in the courts is adjudicated, is debated on, deliberated by a judge, the old boundaries are still in place. But if, on the other hand, we were to withdraw this case, new boundaries will come into place. We believe the old boundaries should be in place to allow a newly constituted Constituency Boundaries Commission to be formed and to bring in proper electoral boundaries. We expect that during the course of this year, shortly, that this case will be heard by the High Court to deal with this report. So, we require boundary changes, but they must be done properly.
And we'll have more on that for you in coming newscasts, as we're still following up on this situation with the boundaries, which are in limbo. Still to come in regional developments this evening, riots in Dominica following an opposition rally have caused millions of dollars in damages to Roseau business places. The details in a moment. Dominica's Prime Minister has put the country's main opposition, United Workers' Party, on notice that the only way his administration will demit office is at the polls. The UWP held a public meeting in the capital, Roseau, on Wednesday, demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. Hours later, violence, vandalism, and gunshots erupted in the streets. The Dominican Prime Minister has put the blame squarely at the feet of the opposition, but the UWP officials have also publicly denounced the violence, stating that the protests and violent acts are unrelated to their meeting.
Videos spread quickly on Tuesday night, showing riot police taking to the streets of Roseau, Dominica to disperse looters and protesters. The angry mob set fires on the streets of the capital and smashed store windows and looted a number of businesses, including telecoms provider Digicel's flagship store. The country's Prime Minister Roosevelt scurried toward the business center on Thursday morning to assess the damage and meet with business owners and managers. He spoke on the issue and condemned the violence while addressing an event.
A riot which was organized clearly by the leadership of the United Workers' Party and the associates. And I visited the Muslim store, for example. They set fire at the back of the Muslim store. And I say the volume of stock, millions of dollars destroyed. Those that were damaged by smoke or by fire were damaged by water. And it is incomprehensible. We're Christian people in this country. Those of us who have a Bible and go to church every morning and praise God or praise Allah will be condoning this action by the United Workers' Party because of our partisanship.
Skerritt also made it clear that he would not be stepping down.
I am saying to people in Dominica that nobody and no groups of individuals are going to get me out, my government out, without going through the ballots of Dominica. And I will say finally, never take my silence for weakness. I am measured with my approach with life. I have to get reason to the forefront as the leader of the country. But let it be known that there should be no actions on the part of individuals in Dominica to overthrow this government. None. So if that's what is their intention, I am sending a message to them. They better rethink their plans.
The country's National Security Minister, Reuben Blackmore, praised the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force for its handling of the situation, stating that officers were heckled, stoned and shot at, but did not use deadly force. He confirmed a number of arrests, including one young man who he says confronted police with a 9mm firearm. Meanwhile, the opposition United Workers' Party has issued a statement on the episode. The release condemns the lawlessness in the capital, as well as statements that the party is to be blamed for the violence. It stated that the public meeting ended hours before the rioting.
After a difficult start, plans for the new Grenada Parliament building are finally coming together, with funding now secure and with assistance from the government of Mexico. Progress on the project is expected to move forward smoothly.
Funding in the initial stages was one of the most contentious, as last year the Australian government, who originally committed US $5 million towards the project, reneged on the agreement. Following this, government held talks with several international partners, which saw the commitment of the Mexican government in the sum of $5 million towards the project. Mexican Ambassador Luis Manuel Lopez on Wednesday visited the site, a move he says should be seen as the Mexican government honoring an agreement made in principle with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell during a 2014 visit. Ambassador Lopez added that the funding forms part of a $160 million special thrust to develop important projects in the Eastern Caribbean.
We are pretty sure in Mexico that the construction of the parliament is something that will benefit the population, because finally the parliament will have very beautiful places to develop the works under the democracy.
Similar projects in the region have benefited from funding, including a bridge in St. Vincent, St. Lucia water treatment plant, and the St. Jude's Hospital. Also visiting the site was the United Nations Office for Special Projects, UNOPS, an operational arm of the United Nations responsible for implementing projects. UNOPS Director Inga Falk-Olsen says monitoring the construction of the project is key.
Basically, there are some challenges in terms of ensuring proper quality. The steel works here is flown in from China. So we have been, and the contractor have been to China to reassure the quality of the steel structure, and then indeed did find that everything was not originally 100% up to par. And that is something that we now have resolved, and that we're assuring quality of the steel structure, which is, as you very well see, it's critical for the sustainability and viability of the building.
Olsen says they are seeing increased interest from countries in the region in their services in a bid to ensure effective implementation of public infrastructure and procurement that allows for savings.
In Guyana, ChildLink has launched a Child Rights Alliance to help foster a safer environment for the country's children. More in this report.
The organization is promoting and advocating for the protection of children in Guyana by giving children and youth a voice on issues that are of concern to them. On Wednesday at the National Library, a Child Rights Alliance was launched to effectively assist the daily challenges children endure.
Goals that we're working on as it relates to the Child Rights Alliance. We're hoping to empower these partners that we're working with to create an enabling environment for the holistic development of children. And that is a very important component of the work that we're doing holistic. We don't want to just focus on the child alone or focus on the education alone, but it's important that we look at the psychosocial support, the social networking. We have the children in the interior, we have the children who may have legal matters that they need assistance with.
That was ChildLink's program manager, Keen Chase. She further stated that the promotion of children's rights and advocacy is what the Alliance will work to achieve in conjunction with other organizations. Some of the organizations collaborating with Child Rights Alliance are the Society Against Sexual Orientation Discrimination, SASOD, the Mothers Union, the European Union Delegation in Guyana, the Child Care and Protection Agency, the Rights of the Child Commission, among others. A call was made to stakeholders to render necessary encouragement and support. Here's more from Ms. Alima Nazir, Chair of the Rights of the Child Commission.
The protection of our children is a sacred duty which we owe for ourselves and our future generations. We cannot and must not fail in this regard. The Child Rights Alliance has the potential of facilitating, igniting, and engendering a national movement for children's rights in our country. We must nurture and cultivate it.
The task of child protection is much more exhaustive than what can be achieved by the Child Protection Agency. Citizens are therefore urged to report matters of child abuse in order to achieve that common goal. Ms. Leota Lanford of Child Care and Protection Agency tells us more.
Child Rights Alliance initiative is here today to plan strategically along these lines. I must say, well done. Well done to the architects of this group. It is my hope to see networks in all regions of Guyana where communities and groups can come together to activate and where stakeholders will interact with leaders of the community.
Ms. Lanford stressed that all religious leaders work together, along with the Guyana Police Force, Ministry of Education, Neighborhood Democratic Councils, NDC, and the regional administrations.
Will Frexit follow Brexit? This is the question being asked, and whether France will leave the EU is the big question. The details in a moment. Many believe globalization is now under attack. The electoral victory of Donald Trump, the Brexit vote, and the rise of the ultra-nationalist sentiments in some European countries are all part of a backlash against globalization. Le Pen in France hopes for similar populist momentum, but will France become another setback to global free trade? In Beg, a professorial research fellow at the European Institute of the London School of Economics, thinks that the European Union means more to France than it does to the United Kingdom.
You should not take the current trends as being the way the French election is going to unfold. There will be a strong resistance against Marine Le Pen, and the way the French system works with the second tour matters significantly, because it means that you can knock out the weaker candidates and only present Le Pen with the strongest candidate to oppose her, which in the past has meant that it's been, 15 years ago, it was 80-20 in favour of Jacques Chirac. Now, I don't know how good your French is, but at the time they described it as le facho against l'escroc, which meant the fascist against the crook, and the crook won, even though by then Chirac was tainted. So I think you need to look at this rather carefully and say France has a very different perspective on the European Union from that of the UK. For the UK, the European Union was seen as an economic transaction. For France, it's a fundamental political value based on 200 years of war with Germany. Right. They're not going to let that go very easily.
Recent changes to immigration law in Argentina have taken foreign communities by surprise and left them worrying about their future. The government is tightening border controls, which it says are needed for security measures.
Argentina is a country built by immigrants, initially from Europe, but more recently from neighboring countries, Bolivia, Paraguay and Peru.
I believe that all of us from neighboring countries are worried. I hope our politicians can talk and sort this out.
Changes to Argentine immigration law mean foreigners with criminal records will not be allowed in, while those who commit crimes in Argentina can be more easily expelled. The changes were announced after a number of widely reported crimes involving foreigners.
La principal preocupación que nosotros tenemos es un poco.
Our main concern with the changes is that they can now expel those who have committed minor offenses, who in general are those in the most vulnerable situations.
Immigrant groups fear the government is using a crime scare to join a global anti-immigrant wave, most notable in the United States and Europe.
Una sorpresa realmente.
It was a surprise coming just after Trump's inauguration. At first, we were calm. Then we saw some of the prejudiced commentaries that followed, and now we're concerned.
Up to 1 million Bolivians live and work in Argentina, principally in the horticultural industry. Hard-working and law-abiding, many resent being associated with criminals. The Bolivian community has lived in Argentina for generations, integrated, known as producers and sellers of fruit and vegetables. These new changes to immigration law have left them puzzled and concerned. Argentina shares more than 9,000 kilometres of border with 5 countries, easily breached by smugglers and undocumented travellers. That has to change, says the Argentine government, by working with neighbouring countries and using more sophisticated technology.
Argentina will continue to remain open to the world, but with the moral authority, having welcomed 215,000 newcomers last year, to say no to the criminals.
The director said Argentina will continue to welcome law-abiding immigrants. Their reassurance is tainted by the growing climate of fear felt among immigrant communities elsewhere in the world.
Tight security measures have been put in place for the opening of South Africa's parliament. Last year's ceremony was marred by fighting between supporters of an opposition party and the governing African National Congress. This year, President Jacob Zuma is taking no chances as the government comes under increasing pressure to improve the economy. Tanya Page reports from Cape Town.
Tens of thousands of miners have lost their jobs since the financial crisis in 2008 and the fall in commodity prices more recently. The marchers say that for the mining industry to grow, the South African economy must be healthy, but it's not. And they say the rot doesn't stop there.
There's not a focus on social services enough. There's major issues with the issues of land and land redistribution.
Miners aren't the only ones struggling in these difficult economic times. Unemployment has hit a 13-year high, 27%. But these protesters are among the increasing number of South Africans who don't just blame government, but the man leading the country.
Calls for President Jacob Zuma to go have grown louder since his African National Congress party lost seats in local elections last year. This is a gathering of a group called Save South Africa. Church leaders, youth organisations, civil society, as well as current and former members of the governing ANC, such as Trevor Manuel, who was finance minister for 13 years. They may not agree on who the saviour will be, but they know who it isn't.
I think you need to change government. That voice is very strong as well, and I think that what people are saying is that the president has lost the mandate of the people.
Despite his critics, President Zuma continues to enjoy enormous popularity in key rural areas, which deliver millions of votes to the ANC. But Zuma's term as ANC president expires in December. Some believe the race to succeed him will consume the party and cost the economy.
So here is a president who's deeply compromised in an ethical manner, and he governs a cabinet which is divided. And what that means is that there is a paralysis with regard to issues like economic policy.
The party of Nelson Mandela is the spiritual home of most South Africans. They don't turn their backs on the ANC easily. But if it's to redeem itself in the eyes of those who've walked away, it has to do better.
That wraps up our international developments. Now for a recap of this evening's headlines. Nationally, the government has hosted a national crime symposium after months of appeals by the opposition to do so. Regionally, Dominica's Prime Minister says he will not be forced to leave office following massive riots in Roseau. And internationally, Le Pen's liberalist rhetoric is sparking concerns over the possibility of France's exit from the European Union. Stay with us. Still to come this evening, Sports Zone. Tonight in Sports Zone, Golden State Warriors Stephen Curry takes aim at Donald Trump. We'll be back with the details. NBA star Stephen Curry took aim at Donald Trump after his endorser, Under Armour, praised the president. This is now causing a major controversy after his response.
Let's move to Steph Curry and not talk about a three-point shot, but a shot he took at the president. Under Armour CEO Kevin Plank recently called President Trump an asset to the United States. Well, via the Mercury News, Steph Curry said, quote, "I agree with that description if you remove the et from asset," unquote. My goodness. Well, Steph Curry is a close friend of President Obama and one of Under Armour's most high-profile athletes. Plank was one of several CEOs with whom Trump met to explore business growth opportunities. So Curry said that he wanted clarification on where Under Armour stands on certain social issues. And he also said that their views don't differ from his own, so their relationship has not been affected.
Horse racing enjoys a dedicated following in Thailand. The thrill of the race amplified by the rare chance to gamble in a Buddhist country where betting is virtually banned.
For thousands of Thais, Sunday wouldn't be complete without a trip to the races. Horse racing arrived in Thailand in the 19th century under King Rama V. More than a century on, Bangkok's two tracks generate more than $1 million each race day.
The unique part is that every horse here is Thai bred. They're all bred within Thailand. So the unique point is that every horse that graces this race course is born and bred here in Thailand, and that is unique around the world.
A 2015 study by a Bangkok university found that more than 1/3 of Thais regularly gamble, despite the fact that it's technically illegal here. But thanks to tradition and royal patronage, horse racing is exempt.
I look at the scoreboards, good jockeys, or the ones that I just like. Sometimes horses that I bet on for fun win by fluke.
Namsak Thepnarong is Thailand's top jockey and a favorite with the punters. He began training when he was 12 years old and says his success comes down to discipline, hard work, and concentration. But he admits that many of his peers come under pressure from owners to fix races or deliberately slow down.
Horse owners decide everything, whether to fight or to hold the horse back. For some jockeys, before they mount their horses, they have to take orders from the owners on how to race.
Horse racing has lost ground to football and boxing in recent years. In the 1990s, the clubs brought in 3 times as much money on race days. Nonetheless, dedicated fans are sure to keep coming back in search of fortune.
Finally tonight, if you're thinking of hitting the gym to get in shape or taking up a more mild form of exercise to stay healthy and fit, experts are making new recommendations about the best pre-workout meals to help you maximize your results.
Scientists have long known that what you eat before, during, and after your exercise can make or break a workout and possibly affect your fitness results. So what do nutritionists recommend to munch on? It turns out that quality carbohydrates are important pre-workout and lean proteins post-workout, experts say. This might include low-fat granola bars, fig bars, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, banana yogurt, pasta, or other high-carbohydrate foods. During a workout, hydration is key during 45-minute workouts, but for longer workouts, carbohydrates can help to get you through. Juices, sports drinks, granola bars, fruit, and other high-carbohydrate foods and drinks can be helpful. Solid foods sit in your stomach, and for many people, that creates discomfort. So mostly liquid is recommended. After you exercise, munch on protein such as dairy products, eggs, meat, and poultry. After lighter workouts, eat a well-balanced meal, including high-quality protein and carbohydrates, within 2 to 3 hours after finishing. And to replace fluid loss, drink plenty of liquid.
And that wraps up this evening's edition of the SKN News Now Evening Edition. On behalf of the entire team here at KyssFM, I'm Ebony Brandon, wishing you a very pleasant evening. Goodbye.